So, pretty interesting news here. So, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, they are the organization that coordinates and runs the Academy Awards, the Oscars. And they have announced that they are establishing a new award to honor achievement in casting. This will go into effect for the 98th Academy Awards in 2026, which will honor the films from 2025. And this is the first new category since 2001 with Best Animated Feature. Now, in terms of some other changes since then, there hasn't been a new award, but they combined sound mixing and editing in 2020, which I think, I'm not a sound person, so maybe this would be sacrilegious to say, but it's like, they're really not, there obviously are differences, but really they should just be one category. And so that I actually kind of agree with that decision, but then a decision I did not agree with, and no one did, was in 2018 they announced that they were going to introduce a popular film category, because they were like, well, we never nominate all these big popular movies, so instead of trying to kind of change the way we think about what deserves Best Picture, let's just create a whole category, like popular film category. And it was scrapped because it's so stupid. And it's like, well, what counts as a popular film? How do you measure that? So that ended up getting cut. But the inclusion of an award like this for casting directors, it's been a long build-up. The effort, Variety notes that this effort dates back all the way to the 1990s. There was a really popular documentary, I think in 2012, called Casting By, that kind of shed a light on the work that casting directors do. So in 2013, IndieWire notes that, the Academy created the casting directors branch, and it currently has like nearly 160 members. And Deadline also notes that the Emmys has had a category like this for quite some time. So, it makes sense, and I'm all for it. There has been some resistance to it. Deadline notes that some directors feel that directors are very heavily involved in such decisions. So it's like sometimes an award might go to the casting director, but in a lot of ways the director was as involved, if not more involved with the casting than the casting director. But then Vanity Fair makes a really good point. They quote a casting director here, Gene McCarthy, who pushes back on this idea, saying, quote, "I've heard the arguments against a casting Oscar, but it doesn't really make sense to me that you would say, well, a casting director doesn't really choose the actors. The director does." End quote. As a costume designer would bring a series of sketches to a director, it's a collaboration that is dependent on the casting director's instincts. It's a very crucial part of filmmaking. End quote. And I kind of agreed with the directors, and then I read that quote, and I'm kind of with the casting directors here, where, even if the director's involved, well, ideally the director is involved in every aspect of the film, right? And having been a director a few times, very grateful for it, but, as a director, you're supposed to really collaborate closely with every one of your department heads. Even if you don't know anything about costumes, you're there to really provide the vision, and then that costume designer or the casting director is there to execute your vision using their skills, right? So I think this is a really good step for the Oscars. And also we have this statement here from CEO Bill Kramer, and Academy President Janet Yang, quote, "Casting directors play an essential role in filmmaking, and as the Academy evolves, we are proud to add casting to the disciplines that we recognize and celebrate," end quote. And yeah, I don't find this super controversial. I think this is a really good idea. Again, honoring that work. Because sometimes you watch a film and it's just, the casting is just so superb and so perfect. I feel like this could devolve into just like the way a lot of awards of the Academy are, not always for the best of something, but the most of something. So it's like the best, it's not always the best actor. It's like the most actor, like whoever's doing the most histrionic performance, or like costumes, where it's like, it's not always the best costumes, it's just the most costumes, right? And it's like the most obvious. So I could see this devolving into like a film with a large cast is, and that's not necessarily what always casting is. I think sometimes it's really important, even if it's a really small cast, because it's about finding that chemistry between the actors. So, this is still a developing kind of award. The Academy says that they'll kind of outline more detailed rules April of next year in 2025. But But again, it opens hopefully there's not another 20 plus years in between them creating another award, right? I think there have been other things that potential categories that still have yet to be created. I think best voice acting would be a really great addition, since we already have different categories for live action versus animation. Why don't we have a category for best voice acting? And it doesn't even need to be gendered or supporting, just best voice acting. And you could also include like voiceover of documentaries, right? And then the big one that people always talk about is best stunt work, which doesn't even have a branch at all in the Academy. So I think that would be a really great addition to recognize those people. And again, sometimes the arguments against that are like, well, not a lot of films use stunts. It's like, yeah, but not a lot of films have special effects and VFX either, but we still have a category for that. So I think, again, this is pretty uncontroversial in my opinion. And I think just the more opportunities to honor people, the